16th meeting of the Security Council is called to order. The provisional agenda for this meeting is the situation in Libya. The agenda is adopted. In accordance with Rule 37 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the representatives of Italy and Libya to participate in the meeting. It is so decided. In accordance with Rule 39 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite Mr. Karim Khan, Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, to participate in this meeting. It is so decided. The Security Council will now begin its consideration of item 2 of the agenda. And I now give the floor to the Prosecutor Karim Khan. Please. Welcome.
Mr. President, thank you for the opportunity to brief the Security Council today. And please also allow me to begin by recognizing and expressing my thanks to His Excellency, the Permanent Representative of Libya to the United Nations for his attendance in New York, and of course also to the Permanent Representative of Italy. Mr. President, Excellencies, I am addressing you today following what can only be described as an unprecedented 6 months of dynamism in our work in the situation in Libya. As we have seen in recent days, we also come together clearly at a critical moment for Libya. A significant conflict going on, combined with allegations of serious crimes in Libya that have again gripped Tripoli and other areas of the country. And there is no doubt that we have in this period been facing significant challenges. Challenges in cooperation, challenges in the political and security context in Libya, and attempts to impact the work of the court more broadly. But I wish to let this council know how genuinely proud and thankful I am in this context of what the Libya Unified Team in my office has been able to achieve. Some of the members are here in the room with me, and they have worked without tire, they've worked with focus, and they've worked building partnership with the affected communities, with civil societies, with the government of Libya, with all those that wish to join our collective work towards justice and against impunity. In the last 6 months, this progress has been reflected in the major step taken through the issuance of the first public arrest warrant with respect to crimes committed in detention facilities in Libya. This area of work has been a central priority for the office for a number of years, and it's one of the pillars of the renewed investigative strategy I outlined to the Council in my 23rd report. It is a line of inquiry that demands our collective action, given the gravity and scale of the crimes we allege are being committed right now in detention facilities in Libya. There is what can be described as a black box of suffering on the coast of the Mediterranean that nobody has wanted to open. A black box that contains the cries, the ongoing pain as we speak, of some of the most vulnerable people in both the west and the east of the country. Our investigations into these crimes have been methodical, they've been diligent, and they have drawn on multiple interconnecting sources of evidence based on our partnerships with many actors, including direct testimonial evidence from victims, from witnesses who've survived their times at these detention facilities, and in some cases, their family members as well. It includes forensic evidence of injuries that occurred in detention that were inflicted upon them whilst they were being detained. It includes direct video and audio evidence showing these crimes being committed, having been analysed and verified through the new technological systems we have put in place. It includes reports of the United Nations, the independent fact-finding mission on Libya, the panel of experts on Libya, many reports of civil society organizations documenting such crimes, which have then been reviewed, analyzed, and assessed by us. So many official documents, a variety of open source material, including in social media, and satellite imagery showing movements at detention facilities at different sites and the increasing expansion of locations where we believe these crimes are being committed. Based upon this and other work, this intensive and focused work, it was a moment of real significance, a moment of hope, a moment of promise, when Mr. Osama Najim was arrested by the Italian authorities on the 20th of January this year, based on an arrest warrant issued by Pretrial Chamber 1 of the International Criminal Court at the request of my office. For the first time, we saw the potential for some sunlight to reach those sites, for some truth to emerge, to show the world what is happening, and to give hope to the victims of crimes that we say are being committed. Mr. President, Excellencies, that hope for so many soon turned to frustration in the days that after the arrest of Mr. Najim, when he was returned to Libya by Italy, returned back to the place where we say he had been committing crimes against humanity and war crimes, including murder, torture, and persecution at Mitiga prison. And these crimes that are alleged, that were subject to the arrest warrant issued by the pretrial chamber of the ICC, by Mr. Najim personally, ordered by him, or committed with his assistance by members of the Special Deterrence Force, known as RADA, are matters of great concern. The victims subject to that warrant were often imprisoned due to their faith. Many of those that were identified were targeted, we say, solely for having a different opinion or for their willingness to publicly identify themselves as Christian. Some were imprisoned and tortured, it's alleged, because of their sexual orientation. Others attacked for their perceived contraventions to SDF or RADA's religious ideology, or their alleged support or affiliation to other armed groups. And as communicated to us by civil society partners, there was real dismay, there was real disappointment amongst victims that Mr. Najim has been returned to the scene of the alleged crimes. But it's important to be clear that the impact of the work, the impact of the warrants issued by the judges of the ICC, our focus on providing a lifeline of hope to those who remain in unlawful confinement was not in vain. It is not in vain, and it will continue. We know from multiple sources in Tripoli, and more broadly, that the arrest of Mr. Najim and the publication of the arrest warrant in relation to him have sent what can only be described as shockwaves through the militias, through the community of alleged perpetrators throughout Libya. A rising awareness that the rule of law has entered the territory of Libya, and the allegations are being forensically looked at, are being analyzed, and that there are independent judges in The Hague that are doing their jobs. We are aware from changed travel patterns of suspects that we're tracking, from accounts of those on the ground, that there's deep concerns amongst militia leaders as to who else may be targeted by our work and how extensive our investigations are, or how deep they will go. I wish to confirm today to this council, but more importantly, to those individuals that may be involved or responsible for those crimes, that their fear is not misplaced. My office is actively seeking arrest warrants for additional individuals in relation to crimes in detention facilities across Libya in the east and in the west. And our ongoing efforts are not limited to seeking further warrants of arrest. I can confirm to the Council today that with respect to Mr. Najim, the ICC has responded to a request for assistance from the National Crime Agency of the United Kingdom in support of a UK civil investigation into assets held by him. And drawing on this collaboration, the NCA has obtained orders to freeze accounts and properties with a combined value of £12 million. And the investigation by the UK's National Crime Agency is ongoing. Mr. President, Excellencies, I also wish to note the significant developments taking place in Libya as we speak, as part of which the Prime Minister has officially dissolved RADA and replaced its functions with a new office. A very important decision by any metric. As part of this action, we understand that Mr. Najim has been removed from his functions at the top of the Department of Operation and Judicial Security in the Judicial Police. This is an immensely positive development, and I welcome and applaud the action taken by the Prime Minister at this critical juncture for the people of Libya. And I encourage the Libyan authorities to now hand over Mr. Najim for transfer to the International Criminal Court so he can stand trial for the crimes that have been subject to the warrant issued by the pre-trial chamber. Crimes against the Libyan people. And I particularly take this opportunity, Mr. President, to call upon the Attorney General of Libya, Mr. Al-Sadiq Al-Sur, to arrest Mr. Najim and surrender him to the ICC. If a reminder were needed of the imperative of breaking down the wall of silence in relation to these crimes and of finally ridding Libya of the dark, pernicious power of its malicious forces, it came just a week ago on our screens that were seen by millions on social media and in the international media. Many of you, distinguished delegates of the Security Council, may recall seeing on your phones or on your televisions an image of a broken man with a chain around his neck, dust caked across his face, with the deepest fear in his eyes and a voice trembling as he was forced to make declarations against himself. That gentleman was Ibrahim al-Dirsi, a member of parliament in eastern Libya. And his alleged crime was that he dared to raise his voice for the people of Libya. He spoke up for the people, the values, the hope of a Libya where rights were there for everybody. His disappearance in Benghazi was a case I had referenced, you may recall, in my last report to the Council, highlighting the extent of the suffering caused by enforced disappearances and arbitrary detention in Libya. As I sit here, Mr. President, none of us know his fate. I don't. The videos show clear signs of torture having been inflicted upon him. My office has retained an expert to examine that video material based upon a request from the Libyan authorities themselves. And we can say that those videos, those images are authentic with a high degree of confidence. We are working further with the Libyan authorities for analyzing additional videos documenting a variety of heinous crimes that we conclude are still taking place in Libya. The act taken to dissolve militias in Libya right now, in these circumstances, is historic. It's an opportunity to put a stop to these types of crimes. And it's my hope that through continued focus on crimes committed in detention facilities in Libya, through more arrest warrants, either under seal or public, and through further cooperation with our Libyan partners, collectively, we will manage to break open this black box of suffering. It is essential that our focus on these crimes is now matched by cooperation of states in apprehending those responsible, and it's essential that all states meet their obligations under the Rome Statute under the Resolution 1970, adopted by this Council in 2011, so that together we can remove this sense of impunity that is fueling this cruelty. And in doing so, we can create more space, give more oxygen to good faith actors, to the people of Libya, to those that love Libya, regardless of their nationality, to improve governance and promote the respect for human rights as a foundation for a better future. This is the virtuous cycle of justice and good governance that I believe can represent one of the joint successes of our collaboration with the Security Council in accordance with Resolution 1970 that you passed in 2011. Mr. President, Your Excellencies, as reflected also in my written report, my office has been able to move with speed across other lines of inquiry outlined in our previous reports and the renewed strategy for Libya, including with respect to crimes committed against migrants and crimes related to the 2014 to 2020 operations. And the work is not done alone. The ICC is not the sum of its own personnel, its own office. It's the product of this joint collaboration, this fusion, this bridge, joining together a variety of actors from states, from civil society, from different types of partnerships, working with a common will, a common belief, with courage to support the victims themselves. And the victims, critically, are at the heart of that. Their courage must be applauded, and their willingness to keep engaging with the office is something I also commend. The progress we have made in this period has, in particular, been founded on these types of partnerships with victims and civil society. In this period, the team has held more than 145 meetings with different civil society organizations, more than 80 of them. The team has participated in a second major meeting with 38 CSOs only recently. Not speaking at civil society, but listening to them and trying to find ways in which we can more effectively be a solid, reliable, and effective partner with them to make sure there's more justice and less impunity. And in those meetings, we've heard a full range of emotions. Thank you, Mr. President. We'll try to continue. I was giving an overview of some of the range of emotions from civil society and victims over the last 6 months, but underpinning it all was real hope that based upon the collective action under the mandate provided by you to the court, we can build stronger foundations for a brighter future for Libya. And I was then moving to say that I have to admit that in the course of that discourse with civil society, there's some trepidation amongst them regarding the planned completion of the investigative phase of our work as outlined in this and previous reports. I do understand this concern and we are listening, but I'm also clear in my view. We must proceed at speed with our investigations and demonstrate every effort to move forward to fulfill the mandate provided by the Council to the Court. And pursuant to that imperative, I can confirm to the Council that investigations into a number of priority lines of inquiry pursuant to the mandate of this Council to be completed by the first quarter of 2026. This means that my office will fully complete the investigative phase of our work under this Council mandate before my first report in 2026. This reflects the significant progress we have made in recent years in the applications we have been able to make in this situation, including in relation to Tahuna and Mitiga Prison. Even after completion, work will continue to ensure that the office is trial ready once any of the existing arrest warrants are executed. We will continue to work with states and partners for the successful execution of existing arrest warrants and for trials at the court. Mr. President, Excellencies, in parallel with this focused work of delivering on the mandate, we've also had some significant and I believe truly positive developments with the engagement of the government of Libya. Today, the Registrar of the International Criminal Court confirmed receipt of a declaration by Libya pursuant to Article 12.3 of the Rome Statute, accepting the exercise of the court's jurisdiction from 2011 until the end of 2027. This declaration received today represents a profound step to a renewed platform for collective action between the ICC and Libya in pursuit of justice. And I strongly welcome the courage, the leadership, and the decision by the Libyan authorities in lodging this declaration. Consistent with our established practice, my office will now review the declaration and will take further action in line with the Rome Statute. But I wish to note already today that I believe this step will allow us to move forward with our work on a new common basis of collegiality, of partnership towards the same goal of justice. And the commitment by the government of Libya through the declaration really is something that we harnessed to build a better future and help drive Libya out of the difficulties that it has been struggling with for far too long. And while my office will continue to conclude its mandated activities under Security Council Resolution 1970, we'll also look to beginning a new chapter of action and investigations based upon this important step taken by Libya today. Partnership, communication, dialogue that has been a feature of the various reports that we've submitted over the last couple of years, the attempt of respectful dialogue and communication has borne fruit by way of this sovereign decision of Libya in lodging the declaration that I have referenced a moment ago. It also means that those who are committing crimes in Libya as we speak should be aware that there's not a gap between the government of Libya and the ICC. The physical, geographical distance, the political environment is neutralized by this solidarity and this new partnership between Libya and the court to deliver justice for the people of Libya. I'm convinced that working together, we'll be able to deliver even more and ensure that those detention facilities subject to human trafficking, those who spent too long without justice, who've lost loved ones, they'll feel the impact of our work. And I wish to underscore, Mr. President, my debt of thanks to President Menfi and Prime Minister Deba for such strong leadership, such strong and courageous support to end impunity in Libya. Their decision actually is leadership in action. We stand ready to partner with them. We look to build further possibilities to open more bridges of communication for international crimes committed in Libya. And in doing so, I believe we will set a stronger foundation for peace and create further space for actors that have the best interests of Libya and her people at heart. While your action as a council has set this basis, I'm pleased that Libya and the office will continue to work together on this renewed basis for this important collective work that will ultimately vindicate your decision in Resolution 1970 that justice, peace and security are the God-given right of the people of Libya. Thank you so much.
I thank Prosecutor Khan for his briefing. And now I give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Mr. President, First of all, please allow me to put forward an objection of principle with respect to the appearance in front of the Council of the so-called prosecutor of the so-called International Criminal Court. First of all, the reports by Mr. Khan disinform the Council about the real state of affairs, including the state of affairs within the court itself. Secondly, the court continues a slow-paced investigations of accusations against Mr. Khan, accusing him of sexual offenses. As we stated earlier, in such a situation, Mr. Khan's activity should be suspended and he cannot appear in front of the Council. As we read recently in the Wall Street Journal, we are talking here not about a random event or a misunderstanding. The investigation is about several instances of abuse of his subordinate. The victim, according to the Wall Street Journal, was subjected to sexual violence for months in New York and Colombia, in Congo, in Chad, in Paris, and in The Hague. And this geography tells us that Mr. Khan practiced these offenses whilst on official travel. Such dishonorable acts are incompatible with the ethic of an international official. In any institution which claims to be independent, claims to have authority, a person accused of such serious offenses would on his own suspend his work. But Mr. Khan, without any remorse, is now speaking in front of the Council. The investigation of Mr. Khan's actions has been going on for 6 months, but we know nothing about the outcomes. We're left with the impression that Mr. Khan is an untouchable somehow, who can act with impunity at the same time make his statements about how he's fighting impunity. The fact that the ICC allows such a person to once again represent the court in front of the Council in and of itself takes away from the court the moral right to demand respect by the international community. Furthermore, the court itself leeches about $200 million United States of member states for its activity. We would recommend to member states to study what exactly this money is being spent on, taking into account the frequent tours by Mr. Khan accompanied by the acts which are now under investigation. If the colossal infusions by the Europeans into a body can follow certain logic because the ICC is serving their interests, but we do not understand why developing countries are to pay for the hegemonic ambitions of a narrow circle of Western countries. Against this background, the proposal to allocate monies from the UN budget to ICC are absurd. Not a cent from the UN will go towards this puppet tribunal. Mr. President, if there is an area where ICC is setting standards, it's in the area of how not to be effective. The final verdicts of this body can be counted on the fingers of one hand. A considerable number of proceedings fell apart at the stage of investigations because of the poor evidence base, which was based on bought and paid for and nonchalantly put together fakes. Tens of the accused died before the proceedings ended. And I would like to underscore here that these, shall we say, less than impressive results used up billions of dollars. The ICC churned out several dozens of the so-called arrest orders, which are not being executed by anyone. What's particularly glaring here are the double standards by the European countries. When it's the leaders of the states they dislike, the Europeans show unconditional support to the ICC. They ignore the norms of international law on the immunity of high officials, and they ignore the Rome Statute provisions on that. But those who refuse to implement the illegal ICC orders, or refuse to violate international law, well, they are being isolated and blocked by the Europeans. But when it comes to protecting their own interests or the interests of their allies, what we see is exactly the opposite. For example, the representative of at least 7 European states stated directly that they will not implement the arrest order against the Prime Minister of Israel because they referred in this to the international immunity rules. In other words, these norms and Rome Statute provisions are being interpreted and used selectively depending on the political stance. This way, the work done by the ICC and its Western support group has nothing to do with fighting impunity. This is an instrument for settling political scores with opponents. And attacks by the ICC on the immunity of officials of countries not party to the Rome Statute is an attack on the foundational principle of sovereign equality of states. The immunity of Western countries themselves and their allies remain inviolable, and the proceedings regarding the atrocities of their troops will certainly be swept under the carpet. Shielding their own Western masters is the only task within the ICC with which the ICC excels at. What kind of authority of this pseudo court can you be talking about? Even a founding member of the court, which provided in 1998 a platform so as to adopt the foundational statute, very recently ignored the court's arrest order and evacuated a suspect to his home country using a government plane. This situation is an excellent illustration of the double standards by the European states. Their top priority will always be their own political and economic interests, and ICC will be just one of the instruments of putting those forward. Mr. President, ICC is using the Security Council to advertise its so-called accomplishments. Once again, we're being told about launching on the Libyan dossier of a new investigation lines of the presumed crimes against humanity, against migrants and refugees. And in theory, this area of work could be relevant. But the ICC even here is following very old patterns. The flows of illegal immigration and the death of tens of thousands of people in the Mediterranean and elsewhere are a result of what the West was doing, which destroyed Libya because of the NATO aggression. Hundreds of thousands of people who lived in a stable state overnight lost everything and became plunged in a nightmare of devastation and civil war. Many of them have to lose their homes and start looking for a better fate. And how were they greeted by those who are responsible for destroying their country? At best, the European authorities did nothing as regards the migrant ships sinking. And at worst, their priority became making sure that the migrants would never embark on their shores. Well, what do you think? Is there a chance that those who are genuinely responsible for the destruction of Libyan statehood and the death of tens of thousands of migrants will be held to account? Chances of that happening is zero, because the ICC are working on this and they're very professional in protecting their masters. The reports of Mr. Khan show very clearly that the entire responsibility for crimes against migrants, it is planned to place that responsibility on two nationals of Eritrea to then declare success. Instead of investigating what is being done by European states and the European Border Agency Frontex, which is accused of crimes against humanity with respect to migrants by the European human rights advocates. Instead of doing that, ICC decided to collude with them. The prosecutor became part of the joint investigative group created on the basis of Eurojust, which includes in its members the guilty parties themselves. And the outcome is predictable. No one will be held accountable. The so-called justice is being done by the Europeans following a geography principle. And the same criteria is being used to determine the value of human life. And this shows us the worst examples of neocolonial practices. We also noticed the information in the report telling us that the ICC is actively working with other organizations and bodies, including the United Nations Support Mission in Libya. And we would like to underscore here that the mission does not have the mandate to assist the court. And we hope that the new leadership of the mission will stop contacts with the ICC, will follow the position of the Secretary General, where he says the ICC and UN are separate organizations, and we will monitor this point. Mr. President, since the moment the Security Council referred the situation in Libya to the ICC in 2011, since that time, more than 14 years have passed. During that time, the ICC not only showed zero progress, but actually showed their institutional ineptitude. Not a single one of the accused on the Libya dossier was brought to account. Some were killed, others are in hiding, and third ones are released. The involvement of ICC in Libyan political processes undermines sovereign efforts for national reconciliation. What they do worsens internal tension and conflicts, creates additional rifts, and undermines trust amongst political forces. ICC, with claims to universality, in actual fact became an instrument of the collective West to exert political pressure on the countries out of favor. Its continued presence in Libya only impedes the political settlement here. Therefore, we think that it's necessary for the UN Security Council to withdraw as soon as possible the Libyan dossier as well as the Darfur dossier from the ICC so as not to impede a consensus-based political process for all of the healthy public and political forces in the country. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation for her statement.